Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be kind of four things rolled in one. Number one, I want to talk about the new changes to the Elementalist as we transition into the Specialization system instead of the classic trait system we currently have. So I'm going to elaborate to all you guys exactly what has changed about the LE. For those of you who may have missed the live stream or not noticed some of the more subtle changes the devs are playing with. Again, remember this is work in progress. I actually also then want to give my opinion and critique on what I actually think they did well with the traits and some of the places that they really messed up or what still isn't going to see use. Then lastly, once we're done with that, I'm actually going to talk about a bunch of LE builds that currently exist in the game, LE builds that you can conceive of but might not currently work, and see whether they're actually going to be viable or still exist after the change. See, there's about one very important thing the devs said. They said when they were looking for feedback, they said, yes, many builds are going to be nerfed, some of them will fall out of the meta perhaps, a lot more may come into meta across the three game types, but the idea of a build, the spirit of a build should still exist. As far as I can tell, for Elementalist, that's pretty much intact. I wouldn't say they've added any totally new concepts to the Elementalist, but some of the ones that have never really worked, like for example Condition LE, sees a tiny bit of use maybe for some Wild vs Wild roamers, and some SPVP as a little, these things may be strengthened by the change, so I do want to have some particular regard to that. Last of all, it's kind of a showcase of something. Down here I've got GW2 Navi once again, as I had in the last video. This is actually a website that isn't public yet, you guys won't be able to travel to this just yet, but that shaman's been working, did 99% of the effort, did tons of work on this, that is actually going to allow us to make builds under the new system based on what the devs gave us in this live stream, which of course is a work in progress and may change, but it certainly should be very fun. Anyway, today I sat down for a couple of hours and helped that shaman fill in the Elementalist stuff, and because we did the Elementalist stuff together specifically, now I can show it to you guys. I believe this will eventually be hosted on Dolphy, so many thanks basically to both of those, and you guys can keep your eye out on it. That's what we'll be using for this video. So, let's start off. Let's look at the new changes. Let's look at Fire Magic. Of course, this was the top line. I don't think that there's really going to be a notion of a top line, bottom line, middle line anymore. It's just whatever you slot. You're only going to be able to slot 3, and obviously we can't look at Tempest just yet. Big change straight away. We'll look at the miners. We'll do it in the same way the devs did. Big change. We have Flame Barrier, and they said now that Flame Barrier, which currently in-game, as you guys can see here, just has this really crappy, oh, you might burn people who are attacking you. And then there's also a trait that increases this chance if you camp in Fire Achievement for too long. Both the miner itself and the trait that augmented the miner were terrible before. I did propose a change where they get rolled into one. The devs didn't go with that. They're playing with the idea of when you swap to Fire, you gain a Flame Barrier. So that would be your anything like doing a leap through a fire field, or even just pressing focus 5, for example. So you actually get this automatically when you roll into Fire Achievement. This is really cool and important for a few reasons. It's going to have several synergies with ways to gain might that we'll see later in Fire Achievement. And of course, because this is an aura, we can then also take a bunch of other traits that still exist, like getting protection on aura, or getting fury and swiftness on aura, that actually could make auramancers more of a thing. We could even share this out. So that's really, really cool. And they did mention a lot that they want auramancers to be more of a thing. You guys will actually notice, if you look at the build playlist on my channel, I don't do many builds. I've never really done very many super meta builds. The only really decent one, I think, is my most recent one on staff. But a lot of them are actually revolving around aura sharing stuff. I do like the concept, but it's continuously been broken because of stuff like Runes of Radiance that won't actually synergize with anything. They did specifically say, when we get to Water Magic, that Powerful Aura will now proc on a lot more stuff. So we'll get to that soon. Anyway, so then we have the next minor, Sunspot. This is exactly the same. I think it's fine being the same. It didn't need a buff. Maybe a slightly higher radius, just to play into the fact that this is AoE while the air one is single target. But overall, I think it's okay. I'm not too offended by this. Then we also have Burning Rage, 10% more damage to burning foes. This is exactly the same. Not very flavorful, but it works, and it certainly is a decent thing to have in the fire line that's supposed to be heavy DPS-y, and so we'll want those flat damage traits. And again, no change there. So let's look at our options. Number 1, we get Burning Precision. This is critical hits have a chance to cause burning, and burning lasts longer. I predicted that this was actually going to roll into Blinding Ashes, the Grandmaster, which has been remained unchanged, but I think this is okay. This allows you to kind of feel that joy of, oh, I picked this and then Blinding Ashes, and look, oh, the synergy is really good. So we've got kind of a Condi option here. We get Conjurer. This is possibly the worst design trait I think I saw in all of the Elementalist. I think this is terrible, and even on the live stream, they didn't seem to have a good answer for why this exists. Gain a Fire Aura when an ally picks up a Conjure weapon, or you use a Signet. So this is an interesting idea, okay, because it says when an ally picks up a Conjure weapon. So let's say I summon, for example, my Ice Bow. If I summon this Ice Bow right now, do I get the Fire Aura on me? Probably not, because I'm not an ally. But when an ally picks it up, I randomly get an aura proc on me. It's an interesting synergy, and you can have a bunch of stuff then trigger on that aura, and then even share that aura back out to the ally. But it just doesn't make much sense. I don't really think it's got much of a place, except for the fact that there's just more auras rolling around, and it perhaps could incentivize some auramancers to run conjure weapons. But until the conjure weapons change themselves, we're just not going to see that happen. If they indeed are going to nerf Icebow, the Icebow 4, which at the end of the day I don't think fits the flavor of the weapon at all and can be nerfed, but then if they're also nerfing the conjure lightning hammer, we're not even going to see this in PvE. Not that auramancers we're going to care about that in PvE anyway. None of these really are fit for purpose. They're just not. There needs to be an actual change to conjure weapons. So this is just bizarre already. And then it says, oh, also you get the aura when you use a signet. Now this is the bit we're going to find more useful. You're probably going to find auramancers that run lots and lots and lots of signets on their bar. They'll specialize in fire, water, and earth. And from water, they'll share their auras. From earth, they'll maintain the passives on their signets. And from fire, they'll gain lots of fire auras, which can then proc out even further. They'll run like dagger or dagger focus, so that they get double auras on their weapons. Probably dagger, to be honest, because the shocking aura and the water aura is so powerful. And that's kind of the way we'll see auramancers work. But they may pick up this trait, but only for the signet part. The rest of it's just useless. It really is, and it makes no sense that they blended those together. Next trait, power overwhelming. I think we're going to see a lot of specs end up running this. I'll talk about specs specifically soon, but you gain condition damage based on your power. It's not very exciting, but fire magic was always intended to be a flat damage plus condi line. Like this whole idea, we don't see many Ellies do like the hybrid power condition damage role unless they're like running Celestial, when they're kind of everything anyway. But that's kind of what fire magic was supposed to be. Even if you look at Ellie runes in the game, Ellie runes are giving you what power and condition damage. So that even though that's never really worked, they do want that spirit to still be there, and I kind of understand. Besides, power overwhelming is a cool name. If you play Hearthstone, I love that card, and so this is kind of cool. Moving on, we've got Pyromancer's Training. We managed to guess this one right, guys. Deal more damage while attuned to fire and reduces recharge on all your fire weapon skills. Just makes too much sense. There'll be something kind of stupid when we get to air magic soon. One with fire, that the fire auras last longer, which is awesome, and actually will have further synergy too with, I don't know whether they're actually in PvP, but there's a rune set, the Runes of Radiance. Again, these increase aura duration further, so this is going to be pretty cool. You're going to have really long-lasting fire auras, and the important part of this trait is that the fire auras will now actually give you 2 might. So let's look again at the fact that the original miner, the flame barrier, is giving us might when we swap to it. This means if you take these 2 traits, we're actually getting 2 might immediately from going to fire attunement. This is pretty cool. And then if you're on a focus, for example, and you pop this, then you're already up at 4 might, and it will just keep rolling. There's going to be further synergy with that in a second. Then lastly, we've got burning fire. Use cleansing fire automatically when you have a number of conditions on you, and cantrips will also grant you might, so that will grant you even further might. So lots of might stacking here. This is a powerful trait, and we'll see some use from people. Then finally, we've got the Grandmasters. Blinding Ashes wasn't changed. Now, they did say they were thinking of playing with the cooldown and dropping it. And in fact, they specifically said that they might match it to the cooldown of Burning Precision, which has, I think, a 3-second internal cooldown at the moment. I honestly think that Blinding Ashes isn't going to be run in nearly any spec, and I'll explain why. Currently, the only time I ever consider Blinding Ashes is if I am running like a very blind heavy bursty Scepter Focus or Scepter Dagger Elementalist. And even then, maybe it's only slightly for world versus world. I'd do that so I can, say, drop a flame wall and take camps easily. This trait probably isn't going to see much use just because the other 2 are far too powerful. I'd like to see Blinding Ashes have that cooldown removed. However, now that Burn does stack intensity, maybe all these extra burns stacking up and proccing lots of blinds together would be too strong. We'll see, though. Then you've got Persisting Flames. This is ridiculous. I can't believe they did this. Blast finishes you execute on firefields will grant you Fury. Firefields also last longer and create a lava font when you go down. So don't worry, guys. Blinding Ashes, an already underused trait, isn't being buffed, but we're going to make Persisting Flames even more ridiculous. Now, everyone runs this already. I explained it in my staff build why you would take this if you're ever on a PvE staff Ellie, which just are getting massive buffs here, and it's a bit of a shame to me. The idea here is that duration increase is giving you 2 more ticks on your lava fonts. And let's say you're in a good situation and each tick of that lava font's doing 6k damage, which is not too absurd. Wow, that one trait just gave you 12,000 more damage every time you press skill 2. Why would you ever consider anything else? Let alone the fact that everyone else can give you the might that perhaps Pyromancers, Puissance would use, or the fact that most giant bosses blind is a non-element of the game. Yeah, this is the only thing people were taking anyway. It just got stronger. They combined it with the downstate trait, Lava Tomb, which was something I sometimes went for myself. If you're going in pugs, if you're going in subpar groups, which is like 90% of what I do, yeah, you're going to occasionally go down, and this makes your meteor showers and glyphs of storms and existing lava fonts all way more powerful and gives you another one on top. we're going to see an awful lot of lava fonts, is what I'm saying, and I like that it's got a buff, but I am sad that the other two options remain so poor. Moving on to Pyromancer's Presence, I've realised I'm going to spend way too long. Each skill you use while attuned to fire grants you might. This, again, is a terrible trait right now, okay, so if I have a look, I believe the character that was showcasing this stuff might have been on Strength Runes, so the duration here is displayed as 21 seconds. I think it might be a bit lower than that. Our duration, however, is only 10 seconds currently base in the game. They did say that the duration is being buffed, and my god, it needs a huge buff. The problem with this trait is people, especially outside in PvE, okay, the only time you're going to camp fire is if you're on a staff in PvE, and in those situations, these tiny little might procs you don't care about anyway because your whole team just blasted you to 25, and again, more might acquisition is a non-thing. So the only time where this trait might have some synergy with people's playstyles, it's unnecessary. Anywhere else, we're rotating around attunements far too much for us to care about this, and the duration has always been too low. If I build myself just a little bit of might up here, I've got some from other people here, and by the time I can get back into fire attunement on any kind of glassy build that maybe doesn't have arcane, I've already lost all of it, you know, and this is a big problem. There is one nice little thing, and that's that when you trait this, the act of swapping to fire attunement counts as a skill, so you get one might. So then if you consider the new minor here plus this trait, if the minor is actually counted as a skill as well, that could be 2 might when you swap, plus 2 might because it's a fire aura, and then a few other things. You can actually get pretty quick might, and if this is reasonable duration now, Pyromancer's Presence is actually going to look pretty nice for certain roles. Again, bursty, glassy Ellies in PvP, running perhaps Scepter, may find that they start running this trait. Now, Blinding Ashes too may once have been good for that role, except now you've got to consider even the blindness is less potent considering all the thieves are running around with the potential to have resistance. Oh, now they're immune to it. It's not just warriors with Zerker stance we can no longer blind and deal with. Oh, and also they're going to have double Bassy Venom, so even if you do get a decent blind off, it doesn't matter because you're going to get stunned. So Blinding Ashes has been unchanged. Even a lower internal cooldown is not a big enough change, especially considering all the other changes everyone else is getting. So anyway, there you go. That's fire magic. That's generally what my opinions on fire magic are. And I don't think we've lost too much, but the Grandmaster's still underwhelming. You're going to find that a lot with Elementalist. Moving on, let's have a look at water magic. This was the first thing they revealed. Soothing Mist, this is exactly the same as it was before. I think Soothing Mist, as well as Regeneration as a boon, are both really bad in this game. I think Regeneration is the most boring boon in all of Guild Wars 2. I'd love to see them knock the duration on all regen applications in the game way down, knock down our access to it, and actually increase its potency so we notice it while it's on us. But so that's pretty bad, and so in my opinion is Soothing Mist. It's just not fun. It's so minor, even on a really high healing power spec character. Don't care about it whatsoever. I wish that this had had some kind of a buff, but it hasn't. The next minor is Healing Ripple. This is a great trait, and I'm not surprised to see it stay. Aquatic Benevolence. I talked to you guys in a previous video already about how happy I am this has become baseline, because it allows us to pick some, you know, high damage spec here, or if we're going for a Healy kind of approach, we can basically get 2 Grandmasters now. But at the same time, because Water Magic doesn't come inherent with Healing Power or Vitality anymore, we're actually going to see a lot of people spec Water Magic. This is going to be one of the core lines in PvE, especially all Ellies use. All Ellies are going to be in fire, they're all going to be in water, and I think they're all probably going to be in air. Actually, these are the 3 specializations. We'll see, at least until Tempest comes out. And this is because Water Magic offers so many flat boosts, but then I look at this minor and I'm like, huh. There's a lot of people specking into water, and they don't even care about this buff. Maybe that's a little bit ill-designed. So, moving on, we've got Soothing Ice, gain regeneration and Frost Aura whenever you're struck by a critical hit. Again, this Auramancer idea, very cool. Don't forget, you're already coming into Water Magic as an Auramancer to share your auras around with the Grandmaster. Well, you also got your Aura Synergy here too, where you're getting Frost Auras as you're hit. Now, there is a lot of stacked up Aura stuff here. Don't know how clear it's been to you guys, but I really think Auramancer is going to be a big team supporty thing. If Dagger Celestial Ellies fall by the wayside a little, I am almost positive we will see that role be replaced as Auramancers, okay? Because there's so much Aura application. The boons we're losing from a nerf in Arcane that I'll talk about shortly, we're just going to be getting back from the Auramancer stuff. I keep jumping the gun. Alright, moving on. Piercing Shards. While attuned to water, your spells deal more damage to vulnerable foes, and vulnerability lasts longer. Now, there was actually a method of bursting on Elementalist where you would use, and I set it up before recording this video, where you would use an existing water magic trait that would mean your arcane skills cause vulnerability. So if you popped Arcane Power, and then you hit all the procs off of it, you actually notice, I'll have to freeze frame that, the enemy will actually get like 21 vulnerability on them. It's kind of cool, and it means after your spike them, it might be slightly weaker if you picked other stuff. You can then have a lot higher pressure because they're so vulnerable just after you spike them. Well, that's not going to be a thing at all anymore. They've removed that functionality. Instead, we just do more damage to vulnerable foes. This is what pretty much everyone's going to pick, and it lasts longer. Stop, drop, and roll, again, is just such a poorly designed trait. People don't run it anyway, and if you're specializing into water because you want more condition removal, okay, why wouldn't you go Soothing Ice so that you gain regeneration when you're critically hit, and then take Cleansing Wave in this slot and Cleansing Water up here. Remove a condition when gaining regeneration to yourself. That's so much Condi Cleanse already, and that's the superior option than the third. No one's ever going to take Stop, Drop, and Roll. The only people who might are people in Metrica Province trying to attune their key to the ice element, and they're annoyed that they keep getting in combat by those ice pylons that keep putting chill on them, and now they're like, aha, I can dodge roll and remove the chill. It's just so stupid. Terrible trait. I don't know why they decided to keep it under this system. Moving on, Soothing Disruption. Cantrips grant you regen and vigor. Cantrip recharge is reduced. Predicted these coming together. Great trait, and a lot of people are going to be running it. Remove a Condi, again, great trait. People are going to continue using that. Aquamanta's Training, deal extra damage when your health is above the threshold. This is pretty much what everyone in PvE is going to run for. Reduces the recharge and water weapon skills. That's really not going to matter too much for any build that's actually doing this for the damage, but I suppose it's a nice little perk. They just have no synergy amongst themselves. And then finally, Cleansing Water still remains very strong. Or Powerful Aura, I think we're going to see a lot of as more Auramancers come around. And Bountiful Power, this has actually been buffed. This is currently our minor. And this will actually only offer us 1% damage increase per boon. This is now going up to 2% once again, as it was at launch, even though now it's something we actually have to choose for. So, that's already quite a lot of damage. These extra 4 points worth of power we can now pick onto the new system are actually going to really do a lot of work for us because water's got so many flat damage buffs for us. Now, moving on, we have Air Magic, and again, I think this is what all PvE Elementalists are also going to do. They have Zephyr Speed. This is still pretty much a poor trait in my opinion. Move faster while attuned to air, but the increase is only 10%, barely perceptible in gameplay, and is outclassed by a whole bunch of other stuff. Like, for example, if I really wanted to move a little bit faster, say I'm in World vs. World or PvE, running around a lot, instead of rotating into air attunement while I'm wandering around, I'm probably just going to slot on Signet of Air and move 25% faster. This has always been redundant. There's actually been a lot of traits like the old dagger trait that used to exist in Arcane. It sucks. This should be something else in my opinion. Next minor, Lightning Strike. Obviously very powerful. Hold on, let me move the page up. Obviously very powerful and will remain as so. And Weak Spot, it remains the same as well. Our three options here are going to be Zephyr's Boon, Aura's Grant Fury, and Swiftness. Now, on the Aura idea, again, we're running out of specializations. You could make an Auramancer that runs Fire Magic and runs Aura on Signet, Auras last longer, and then whatever you wanted here, Pyromancer's Puissance, so you'd have insane might from your auras. Okay, then you would run, obviously, Water, you're going to want this, and then you'd take the top one here, Frost Aura, you might take the bottom one to reduce the cooldown, the long cooldown on the Frost Aura and Dagger offhand, and then, of course, you're going to run Powerful Aura to share Aura to people. Then you might run Air Magic, which gives you Zephyr's Boon, which makes all these auras, when you swap to Fire, you get Might, Fury, and Swiftness, for example, and then down here, you take Tempest Defense, so if you get CC'd, you proc Fury, Swiftness on yourself, you proc an aura on yourself, you share that out to everyone around you, and then of course you could just take whatever you want here depending on the weapons that you're using, for example like Fresh Air. So you could do that, or you would then have the option of maybe throwing Earth in. Earth offers a lot of stuff as well. If you're doing the Fire thing, you're going to want a lot of Signets. Maybe you want to keep the passives on those Signets. So you can say, okay, maybe I don't care about the Air Magic, instead we'll have a look Earth Magic, and then you can decide in Earth Magic that you want to give yourself protection when applying an aura to yourself, and then give everyone stability when you attune to Earth, and then keep the passive effects of Signet. So not only do I think Auramancer is gonna be a thing, I actually think there's gonna be some variation also in the way people run it. Maybe you don't even want the Earth-Fire synergy with the Signets. Maybe you instead want to run Water, Air, and Arcane, which again is a very viable option. So again, I kind of went ahead of myself there. I think Auramancer is going to be a great thing, and any aura trait we've really seen should be pretty cool. One with Air, the super speed when swapping to Air attunement, incredibly potent. They've actually buffed it now to 3 seconds. Was a very, very cool trait before. I can demonstrate it to you guys here in game. Now, right now it's only 1.5 seconds, and they're doubling its duration, which is pretty much perfect. I think we're going to see a lot of Elementalists running this trait because ultimately it's a minor in a very popular line. A lot of people are going to run this line across all 3 formats. So, and there is good cause to take Zephyr's Boon, for example. The other trait really isn't that strong, so I actually think we're going to see a lot of this. And it's got some great synergy with a lot of your movement abilities. You can pop it, and then if you're quick enough, you can, you know, use your Greatsword 3, and you'll move very fast. If you have a dagger equipped in the offhand, you can ride the lightning a lot further. It's generally just a cool trait, a fun trait, lots of flavor, and I like that now. It should be a bit more viable, and its competition isn't too fierce. Ferocious Winds, I think, is a terrible trait. What is it with them doing terrible traits in the adept slot? Who cares about this? What build, honestly, is going to want ferocity based on healing? What stat set is going to run that, guys? I mean, maybe the Celestial kind of Ellies will once again take this, but are they really going to take this over getting Fury and Swiftness on their auras if they're running DD? Somehow I don't think so, especially considering they're getting less swiftness because of the Arcane nerf, where they don't get elemental attuning anymore because everyone's obviously going to run Evasive Arcana, which I'll talk about last of all. So, again, terrible trait. I don't see any other space for it whatsoever. I liked it before, at least when it was giving us healing power, and it at least had something to offer Elementalist. Like, I built Magi's Ascendis gear for my Elementalist just so I could convert that precision into healing. Well, you don't get that anymore. Now, apparently, it works the other way around. It's really, really stupid. No one's going to run it. It's going to be a competition between these two. And I think for a lot of PvE players, they'll be on one with air rather than Zephyr's Boon. I mean, just look at the durations. 3 seconds of super speed or 5 seconds of swiftness. Now, obviously, the 5 seconds of swiftness can be augmented to last longer, but you've got other sources of it too. All right, moving on. We've got Inscription. Grant a boon associated with the current attunement when you cast a glyph. Now, they've talked a little bit about the idea of a boon mancer. Frankly, though, I don't think this is going to see much use. Why? Because it's a bit like the conjure weapon thing. The skills themselves are just not good enough. This Glyph of Elemental Power is probably the most underused while being effective glyph in the game, simply because when weakness changed to be so strong with a 50% fumble and not ignore crits any longer, 7 seconds of weakness that procs on a 5-second ICD just from critting people is really strong. But it's only strong in air. Chill, we don't care too much about, or the cripple we don't care too much about. Not enough to use an entire utility skill just to proc it. Now, the burning, this could be kind of interesting. There is actually a lot of position for Elementalists now that burning stacks intensity to stack tons of burning on someone using, say, this glyph and a couple of arcane traits I'll talk about soon. So maybe we'll see this in some kind of like a Condi Ellie who runs glyphs and lots of boons on their glyphs, but I am a little hesitant to suggest it. Of course, the combining of the two traits is at least nice, but this needs some kind of balance. Like 1 might if we cast a glyph in fire, really? No, come on, but at least make that 3 might, alright? Like, the protection's strong, but has a disgusting duration. They just gotta look at this. Moving on, we've got Aeromancer's training. Gain ferocity while attuned to air. Reduce recharge on all air weapon skills. I like what they're doing. They've got something paired with the recharge reduction in each, and it's flavorful to the line. So, for fire magic is flat damage. Air magic's supposed to be about critting and getting big crits. That's fine. However, they only gave this 150 ferocity. I don't see why ArenaNet don't understand this. 150 ferocity is not equivalent to 10% flat power, which is what we currently get. Currently in game, we can just take 10% more damage while attuned to air. Now we just get 10% crit damage while attuned to air. That's obviously weaker because not everyone runs around with 100% crit chance. So already it's nerfed, and when you boost something's flat damage, that then will make its crits also higher. But now we're only buffing the crit damage after it's already been calculated, so that it's lower damage. It's not worth it. This ferocity, if it was a 200 ferocity increase, I think it would be really, really strong. But just giving us 10% more crit damage in air attunement, this is a nerf, and I think it sucks. If you want this to be equivalent to the fire magic one, which it should be in my opinion, something like 200 ferocity, and then it's perfect. The next one, Tempest Defense. Now this, moving down here, is actually pretty cool. Again, this is it's got the aura synergy, but this also will increase our damage by 20% to stunned or knocked down foes. My proposition was to combine that with Lightning Rod, but you can actually take both of them together, and it's kind of fun because you see that synergy there. So you can take Tempest Defense, and then you can run Lightning Rod, and you'll CC someone, put weakness on them, and you know from your other trait you're getting that 20% bonus damage. So that's kind of cool. Again, this is going to be something pretty much all the Ellies run when they attune to air in PvE, and it's actually going to be really nice as well for the whole Burst Ellie playstyle, which, now that I'm looking at the time of this video, I may just have to do in its own video. Moving on, we've got Bolt to the Heart. Deal more damage when your foe's health drops below the threshold. This is reading as a 20% damage increase while they're below 33% health. Both Thief and Necromancer have a trait just like this, and their thresholds are more suited. It's below 50% health. So, can we either get an increase on the damage to Bolt to the Heart, so, you know, it's got more flavor, which I think would be pretty cool, you know, especially in comparison to those other classes which have identical traits, or can you at least make it on par with what the other classes have, so 50% health reduction. I think it's okay. It's always been way too strong to be an adept, and it always was like the default pick. So, yes, Elementalists in PvE, definitely. across the board, I suppose, will be losing an amount of damage here, even though they can pick some of it back up in water. Then we've got fresh air that you can pick, again, so we're not going to be able to stack up on both of these. This kind of kills the dagger focus build in PvE, especially if we find, like, Icebone stuff gets nerfed. We may even see the Scepter dagger die, which is why, you know, Staff is just looking so much more powerful in comparison, which really sucks. And lastly, we've got Lightning Rod, which has been unchanged, and actually, I kind of agree with what they're doing here. Tempest Defense, and then we've got Lightning Rod. Oh gosh, you know, guys, I just realized I totally forgot in space to do a proper look through Earth Magic, so this is the end of the video. I'm re-recording here very quickly. We've got Stone Flesh, which has been unchanged and is actually an okay trait. I don't think it's strong enough to really incentivize Ellies to go into Earth Attunement for the defense, so it could have used a buff, but at the end of the day, this is just a change about moving to the new system rather than buffing the crap out of everything, so it's okay. We got Earthen Blast. This remains the same as it always was, and the new Grandmaster in the minor slot, I predicted that the enduring damage one might change. Earth in general did used to have a lot of flat DPS buffs to it and was reasonably useful, but now most of those have gone. It's supposed to feel a lot more defensive, and as a result, I actually don't think we'll see many people attuning to this. Instead, for PvE purposes, we'll see them attuning instead to water, which is curious because it feels like water should be the more defensive and supporty than Earth, which should be kind of a bit offensive, but Earth, the idea is at least going to have some offense in terms of condition damage, not flat damage. So anyway, this trait has changed. Geomancer's Defense, this is totally new. You take less damage from foes within range, and obviously because they can't give you toughness on the line, this is just a flat damage reduction, which is very powerful, and I'm actually really looking forward, again, to running some kind of very defensive, tanky-ish Ellie. Again, this medic build that I was talking about. So for the options we have on Earth, we've got Armor of Earth below health, a certain health threshold. This is 25% threshold, and again, was a strong trait, and I actually think is a really reasonable option for anyone to get specking in Earth. You've got Serrated Stone. This one is our only example of a flat damage boost in Earth Magic, but it's only 5%, and it's mostly about the condition duration on bleeds, and so this is pretty much unchanged. I would have liked that to instead have been your bleeds deal 5% more damage, similar to how, you know, like burns can deal more damage on Guardian, but they don't seem to have changed that. And then lastly, we've got Elemental Shielding, cast protection when applying an aura to yourself, as I explained with the Auramancer thing. Moving on, we've got Strength of Stone. This is our condition damage option. You've got gain condition damage based on your toughness. Now, you'll also remember that fire has gain condition damage based on your power. So if there was a power, toughness, condition damage set of gear you could run, maybe you could stack an awful lot of condition damage there. I think there might be, but the primary on it is unfortunately not condition damage anyway, so maybe you wouldn't. But again, you can actually roll that in and perhaps get reasonably high condi damage. We got Rock Solid, grants stability to nearby foes when attuning to Earth. Again, this is an interesting one for me because Revenant just gets it on dodge roll. Stability is much weaker now, and frankly, 2 seconds of stab isn't enough to cover a whole stomp anyway, so I don't see why this is still being treated as so powerful. There is no way to even increase the boon duration, particularly on this stability anymore, so I don't think people will really take too much of this unless they up it to maybe 3 seconds minimum. Even at 3 seconds, it's still not enough to cover a stomp, even though the duration of the stomp itself should be 3 seconds or so, just because of the way the maths and the animations work out. I used to run with this a lot. I used to run with this back when it was a Grandmaster, and I still think it needs a little bit of love. Yes, it does give this stability to people AoE, so I wouldn't expect anything ludicrous, but right now I just don't think it's quite strong enough. Geomancer's Training. This is still here in the same slot. It just makes you recover from immobilized, crippled, chill, and stuff a bit quicker. If running was a thing in GW2, maybe this would be a fun pick, but ultimately I don't think it's that great. I thought it would have been better as this minor, you know, they could have swapped these two. But in any case, lastly we've got the Grandmasters. Conditions cannot be applied to you. These really haven't changed. We've got the 90% health threshold on Diamond Skin, which is either a massive counter to something or not a counter at all. We've got Written in Stone, which may see some more use now because of the reasons I've described already. And Stoneheart, you cannot be critically hit while in Earth. I think these are really flavorful, really cool Grandmasters. They just need a bit of tweaking, but again, the update isn't necessarily about all buffs. That's pretty much it for Earth Attunement. We'll cut back into the regular video now. Alright, finally, let's have a look at Arcane. Arcane has seen some nerfs, and the big one, of course, is when we get to the Grandmaster level, which we'll go to very shortly. So we've got Arcane Fury. This is the same. I think that's fine. It was a pretty cool minor. We've got Lingering Elements. actually isn't a very cool miner who actually like, if they removed lingering elements, maybe then they have room to buff Soothing Mists, you know, for example, especially with their new fire magic change where the fire doesn't even have a miner that's applicable to this anymore, it's just a fire shield. I would like to see lingering elements change, especially considering this line is just pretty weak now, so that would be kind of cool if they did look into that. Arcane Precision. Now, again, I think this should be something we choose because it's quite obviously like a Condi style thing, and not everyone who goes into Arcane wants to be a Condi Ellie, so can we please have some kind of choice there and then make something just more suited for this slot in Arcane? But you also notice at the bottom there it says recharge reduce 15%, that's on your elemental, on your attunement recharges. So those are the 3 minors. Now, in the first slot we get Arcane Skills, restore 25 endurance when used and have 20% lower recharges. Pretty cool combination, and I think for people who like run Arcane Power, for example, on their burst specs, will end up running that. The endurance is pretty nice too. Renewing Stamina, the unquestionably an incredibly strong trait to take, especially if you're, say, taking water magic and you're grabbing Bountiful Power, you know, that Vigor's just strong on its own, and then that's actually buffing even further. And then Arcane Abatement, you've got your full damage trait, which you're only going to slot when you really want. So really the first slot isn't even that fun already. If you're not running Arcane skills, it's just, oh, I have Vigor. Great. Then we've got Arcane Resurrection. Again, some people will run, there's kind of a medicish Ellie build that I kind of like and might do a video on at some point. I'm glad at least to see it stays here. Obviously, also the full damage trait has moved because it was always an Arcane flavored thing. This was something we predicted in our video and it ended up being true. Elemental Contingency. This is probably the best prediction I managed to get. It is down from a Grandmaster into something we can choose. And this kind of idea of a Boon Mancer who would take, say, Inscription in Air Magic and then would take Arcane. Then they're getting even more boons here when they're struck based on their attunement. And then maybe they're actually going to run, obviously, Elemental Attuning as their Grandmaster. Maybe. Then finally, we've got Final Shielding. It just gives you an Arcane Shield when you get low health. Now, I like the utility of the skill. I find the trait boring, though, especially compared to a lot of the other ones here. Maybe we could have something extra on here. Maybe this should be the trait that now brings back vulnerability on Arcane skill usage. That'd be pretty cool, because the people who really want Final Shielding are probably on glassy specs anyway, and they'll appreciate the vulnerability. I think that's the best place they could drop that back in there. Alright, let's look at Grandmasters to wrap this up. Evasive Arcana remains a Grandmaster. Now, I'm just going to go out there, okay? And I'm going to say Evasive Arcana is the strongest overall since the launch of the game across most specs, you know, exclude PvE, obviously, though even there it's hand-placed sometimes. This is the strongest Ellie trait to have existed, okay? That's what I'm going to say about Evasive Arcana. We all know what it does. It's weaker now that it doesn't blast on every achievement. It's still incredibly strong. Then we've got Elemental Surge. Now, this, I was pretty sour in the live stream to see that it hasn't changed. Based on your current achievement, Arcane skills cause a condition to foes that they hit. Then it also says gain more 150 more ferocity for 15 seconds when you use an Arcane skill. So it's nice that they've rolled that in there. This was originally an air trait, but the ferocity doesn't really have any synergy with the fact that this is applying a lot of condis, right? Though, again, if you look at the condis, we've got Immobilize on there, we've got Chill on there, we've got Blind on there. The only damaging condi, really, is Burning. So maybe there's more synergy there than it would actually at first look. This is the kind of thing where you can pop, say, Arcane Power, throw off a couple of small attacks in Earth Achievement to immob someone, and then you swap and you can burst them down with something else. So it may have place. Also, the fact that Burning is one of the selectable traits here, and now that Burning stacks Intensity, this thing, if you were to use Arcane Power while you have slotted on your character, will put tons and tons of Burning on someone, especially with like a Dagger 2. It's very, very, very strong, and I think we may actually see, after this, some kind of Condi Ellie really come into rotation and actually have some power with it, just because of this Burning stacking intensity thing. Now, it's just as cleansable as it was before, but it will strike harder before it's cleansed, and I think that's very important. I think the only thing really Condi Ellie deserves is one of these water traits should be Chill deals damage. You know, just like Necromancers have Fear deals damage, Chill is a big part of Elementalist. If they added that, then we would really have some viable specs running around on the condition side of things. I really hope they do that at some point, but they're obviously not playing with the idea. So Elemental Surge actually might have more of a place, even though at first it still looks like one of the worst Grandmasters they've got. Lastly, the final one is Elemental Attunement. When attuning to an element, you and nearby allies gain a boon. Now, this used to be in the Master slot, and Elementalists are so squishy. Pretty much Arcane was a must pick for any role that was trying to be like even remotely hybrid or have any survivability, because what you do is you would take this, so you got protection, right? The might was kind of nice, we don't care too much. Even the regen we don't care too much, or the swiftness for moving around, but the protection was huge. Super important, especially considering this was a line that used to boost your boon duration, and now it's not. So that was always a very big thing for Elemental Attunement, and then you could make it even stronger with Evasive Arcana. So you could swap to Water achievement, gain regen, maybe cleanse a Condi on it because you're in water as well back then, and then dodge roll, and you would get a bunch of regen on yourself, you'd heal, you'd splash another Condi cleanse out, and it was really good. Now, though, you can't have both of these. And what I said earlier was that Evasive Arcana was the strongest Ellie trait. I think the second strongest, consistently, for a long time, Ellie trait has been Elemental Attunement. Obviously, for different roles, different traits are strong for different things. But, you know, if you think of the top 2 picks, if you were to tier them, I really think that you've got Evasive Arcana at the top and you've got Elemental Attunement underneath. And now what they've done is they've made them go into direct competition with one another. So while Elemental Attunement, in my opinion, does deserve to be Grandmaster level, it actually is probably not going to see any use anymore. Why? Because you've made it fight with the only thing that's better than it. So everyone's just going to pick Evasive Arcana, and they're probably not going to pick Elemental Attunement. Unless, again, there is some kind of, like, boon juggling thing, and they talk more about how we can get boon duration, and you're going to see a lot of this. But ultimately, in almost every situation, Evasive Arcana is better, okay? Because, like, especially on the heal side of things, if you're getting low and you want to swap into Water Attunement, would you rather a big splash heal, basically activate another skill, a cleansing wave that also cleanses Condi on you, or apply a bit of regen to yourself, all right? No, and even when it comes to supporting your allies, the cleansing wave is going to be better. The blind is going to be better and more defensive than a little bit of swiftness for yourself. Again, you can get swiftness through other areas. The only thing that really smarts is the protection, but I just think everyone's going to run Evasive Arcana, and Elemental Attunement isn't going to be a thing. I agree with the change. I actually think both of these can be Grandmaster. You just need to incentivize Elemental Attunement a little bit more. And the way I would say that is currently it's actually a bit of a supportive trait. It doesn't just put these on you, it puts them on everyone around you. Well, what if you upped the radius? So that was the flavor of the skill, that it actually affected a lot of people around you. Maybe even bump the number of targets up from 5 to 10. And so then you've got kind of a lot of very immediate point-blank AoE dodge roll effects from this Grandmaster, while the effects that you get from attunement swapping on this Grandmaster have actually got that, you know, more easily supportive element to them. And then maybe we'll see it a little bit perhaps in World vs. World or something, the ability to give tons of the Zerg swiftness, you know. Then it actually will have a niche. But for now, I think it's a really worrying change, and obviously a lot of people concerned that Elementalist, especially on TPVP side of things, has been terrible. The only reason it stopped being terrible was because of all the Celestial stuff. With the announcement that Celestial is going to be nerfed by a further 10% and this change, a lot of people are crying that it will never exist. I think, you know, the classic DD Celestial Ellie may end up falling out of favour with this change. I really think it might. But I think that same role might be replaced with some kind of Auramancer sharing supportive Ellie that we'll see come forward there. I don't think this is the end of the world for Elementalist, but it is a bit of a foolish change that I think they need to look at. My suggestion would be keep them both Grandmaster. It really would. Just make Elemental Attunement more potent in whatever way you want it to be. You know, maybe it can be 3 might now, right? Instead of just the 1. So I guess I'll leave it there, guys. We talked a lot about the trait. That's sort of my overhaul. Some of the builds that I see it affecting. I could have talked specifically about a bunch of other stuff, especially like Burst Ellie. You may see a video come out on the channel of how I think glassy, bursty Ellies will be impacted very positively by the update that I've not even began to talk about in this one. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I've never really talked about my time and understanding of how to burst on an Ellie ever on the channel before. When I did it most, I was very into PvP and I was all, oh no, I don't want everyone copying my build, I don't want everyone using it kind of thing, or knowing my tricks. Well, I'm a bit more open to that now because I don't really PvP so much. So maybe I'll do something like that. Anyway, you have to let me know. Again, keep an eye out on Dolphy at some point for when this will come out, and you can do it on any of your own classes. Oh, the Revenant, for example. There's an icon, but obviously we didn't see the traits. And I guess I will see you guys then. Have a great evening, guys. I'll catch you next time.